And again, as we work our way through today's session, just want to once again say thank you very much for everyone for joining our session and being a part of this continued the Hairbrained live sessions that we've been hosting now for a number of weeks. Very excited to have had amazing artists that have been on here with us, and the education and information that has been shared. And for all of you that have been joining these sessions and been a part of them, again, a big thank you to all of you for making these so successful. Again, with that, you can see that our session is going to be blonding with Lupe Voss. And again, just to give you guys a little introduction of everyone that you'll hear and see as we go through this. Again, I'm going to definitely spotlight Lupe, North American art director for Aveda Hair Color. Again, amazing artist. Many of the people that were here that watched her last hair color session, the praise came in and they wanted her back by popular demand. So she's here for an encore. You will, of course, take all of your education and information in from her, but you will hear my name throughout the session, or not my name, but my voice throughout it. And once again, my name is Daniel Dunworth. I'm the Learning, Engagement, and Development Manager for Pivot Point International. My goal is to help bring any questions that you have for Lupe out into the session. So again, please feel free to utilize that chat. Ask any questions you have both here on Zoom as well as YouTube. But with that, we're going to go ahead and bring this over. And let's see, Lupe, I'm going to turn them over to you. So this session is yours.
Good morning. Thank you for having me back. Thank you, Daniel, for having me back. I'm excited to share some information. Today we're going to be doing blonding. And I prepped a mannequin last night for you. I was watching TV and thought I would just throw this together. And let's talk about this. So we have techniques that are a lot of fun for blonding. But what happened with this is we did something that was this dark and got her this light in one go. So I'm going to show you a really fast technique where you're going to take someone who is solid brunette and get her this blonde. So I do want you to see, like through the back. I curled her a little bit. I worked with her own texture, but I'm going to move her around because this is a really pretty seamless technique that the two techniques that we're going to be using today, the first one is going to be microweaving, which last time I was here, I worked with on foiling with you. And then the second technique that we're going to do today is tipping. So it's a backcombing technique. It's a fast backcombing technique, and there's no hair left behind. So when you look at her, you can see how all of her ends and all of her tips are blonded. And this is a great technique. But then when you look at through the front, you can see how it's really soft and blended. I did want to brush through this so that you all could see how soft the blend is. So let's take a check right here because it's very different. When we do blonding, it's different on straight hair. And then when you curl it, you can start seeing more shadows. So you can start seeing through this how you have more of a shadow root. You have some that are going high, some of the tips that are low, and then they're going random. So let me come in through here so that you could see that as well. So this is beautiful, just plain old brushed out. And you can see all of the texture that's happening. And then around through her hairline. If you were with me last time, what we did is we did some micro weaves with some back combing around the hairline. And this is the effect that you get it. If you can get your mannequin's hairline this good, then when you get a real person in your chair, you're good to go. So this is the effect. You can see how blonde that is. And this is it when it's in its curly stage. So I did want to show you the option of straight and curly. So we'll put her down and let me show you the subsectioning. This is what we're going to be doing today. So we're going to start off in quarters. This subsection that I normally teach is super easy. This has to do with how hair falls. If anyone has hair that's chin length or longer, use the subsection. It's the technique that you do within that subsection that creates the effects. Meaning, I could do all of this a foil, full foil. I could do this partial, leave this alone, or hair paint this. I could go through this diagonally, I can go vertically, I can go across. But what happens is this hair, when it drops, this subsection, when it drops the way gravity is pushing your hair down. All right, so let's get this. Let's walk you through it. And if you have a pencil, I'll go slow. So we're going to first start off with quartering out this head. So we'll go from the mastoid process, that area, that bone behind your ear, and the top crown. So I've got the top crown to that bone behind the ear. And the reason why that is important behind the ear, when you see someone who has long hair and they pull their hair back, this hair comes forward. And most of the time when we talk to people who, oh, my hair is so dark, and they're level 25, and what they're seeing is this when they look in the mirror. So that bone, if you take it from the top to the mastoid, you'll always make sure this gets blonded. And I'll show you when we start. So we've got from the top crown on either side, now we just split front to back. And then in the back, just straight down. And in the front, what we're going to do is use her part for our section. So then next, what we'll do is we're creating a triangle that goes down to the pointing down. So from the parietal ridge to the lower crown, section that out, then you have your two sections here. And then when we go to the side, if you look where her eyebrow is, your guess eyebrow, and you take it straight back, you'll go right to that point here. This is the parietal ridge. And you can see it's not a straight line, it's more of a slight curve. Pin this one up, pin this one up. You got that side done, it's super fast. And then here we're on this side, right where her, if you look at our iris to our eyebrow arch, all the way back to that triangle, clip it up, clip it up. So these, we have four sections in the front and three sections in the back. So this is our partings that we are going to be working with. Now, what I did was I started the mannequin because it would take me the full hour and I want to slow down and while I'm working. So I did start doing our mannequin and I'll show you what we did. So this is our sectioning. So we've quartered her out, created a triangle point down, did a mohawk section, used her natural part at the parietal ridge, and then 4 in the front, 3 in the back. All right, so that is our subsectioning. And then I'm gonna put her here so everyone can see her during our presentation. There you go. So let's look at our mannequin. This is Sarah. And let me show you what I did. So what we've got here is we've got 2 rows of microweaves through the front. And this is called a foil in technique. We take random diagonal partings, and what we do is we have 2 foils that are done. We have one that I call a low foil and one that I call a high foil, and then I just foil them in. So I take that diagonal parting and it's big and chunky. I'll show you exactly how it's going to be done. And what you do is you do some back combing and it creates that random, that high and that low that I showed you. That's how we create this. In the top, we have 3. On the side, we have 2. And in the back, we have 2. Team, look at how fast this is. We've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 just on these. And then I'll put 2 in the crown, 8, 9. So we're looking at 18 foils, maybe 16 foil, and that's it. And this is how blonde we can get her. All right, let's start. So we are going to start with micro weaving. We did a little bit of weaving when we were together our last time, gave you some tips and tricks on foiling. So I'm going to recap some of that. I'm going to take a fine parting right here. Let's do that. Now, an ultra weave, when we weave, we'll hold the hair. And look at my pintail comb. Look at how it's horizontal to the floor. This team is an ultra weave. I'm going to show you with the foil. This is an ultra weave. You can see how it's really nice and evenly spaced. But what happens is when she pulls her hair back and her hair grows out, she's going to have an even line coming through. What I want to do is I want to give her a really graceful grow out. I want to do a micro weave. So now my pintail goes up and down like you're writing, just like you're writing with a pen. So I'm going to zigzag and I'm moving slow. I'm not moving fast. The key to this is I'm zigzagging random pieces out of this hair. And then let me grab some more. You can see if you need more. And it gives you a random finish, and I'll show you. Here we go. So now what I have is I have some bold pieces, I have some fine pieces, super fine pieces here. So what this will do, it looks like if you ever see little kids that come back from the beach and they pull their hair back, they have this beautiful, shadowy, random highlight. That's what you're gonna get. And that's what we had on our mannequin. So I'm gonna pull this straight out directly out from where the hair grows. I'm going to back comb and give it a little bit of a cushion. So this is the technique. If you fold forward, make sure you have a 1 inch. If you fold behind, don't even worry about it. Okay, if you don't fold, you can still do this. Okay, I'm taking the hair that I just wove and backcombed. I'm pulling it directly away from where it grows. I'm going to put my pintail in this hair. Watch my left hand. I'm pulling this straight down to the floor. This hand is pulling straight up to the ceiling. And when I put my foil in this motion, what's happening is I'm going to be pushing all that back home behind the foil. So let's do it. So I've got this, and the reason why you need this 1 inch lip, I'll show you right now. So I'm pulling this away from where it grows. I insert the foil halfway on that hair shaft. I'm pulling down to the ground. My right hand with the pintail is pulling up. So if you're a lefty, it would be the other way around. My dismount of the comb matters. How I pull this comb out of the hair, out of this foil matters. So I'm slowly going to follow the head shape. And what happens is when you do that, you can see how the foil cups the head. This 1 inch lip will prevent when I need to pull this up and over, it'll keep it from grabbing it like so. And then you'll have a mess. So 1 inch lip, that way when you take this hair and pull it up and over, you've got control. If you want, you can take a flat clip. I don't normally, but it's just, if you want to do that, you can move all that back combing out. All right, so I'm going to grab my product, my lightener, apply it. Now, this is what you really have to focus on when you're doing your foiling this way. I apply my product with the brush flat to the hair like so. But then as soon as I know I have my product on, what I do is I'll flip my brush vertically and I'll roll it back and forth to make sure that I have saturation, proper saturation. You want to roll that hair because there's some hair that it's really hard to get inside, that really fine hair, it kind of ropes. So the next step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this foil directly out from where it grows. So there is a challenge that happens. If you were to foil this and you pull this straight down like so and paint up to the root, that's not wrong. But what happens is when her hair falls, you're going to see a line. It's just like if you cut a zero haircut. The strongest, heaviest line that you're going to create is straight down cut. That's what I just did here. So I don't want to have a line. So if you ever had any issues with your foils creating lines in the hair or a bright line at the hair, this is what you need to do. Pull this hair out at a 90, and that's when you start addressing the root area. So what happens is it's like you're pulling this out at a 90 when you cut it, it gives you the softest line. So when it falls, there's no heavy line inside there. So I'm going to pull this out directly from where it grows. If you need to adjust your client's head, then you have to adjust it. You can just say, can you please put your chin down? And then look at how easy that is right there. My body is doing good. I'm not hurting my arms. I'm not hurting my body. Okay, so then we're going to fold this up. So up
Lupe,
to
I've
the
got
top.
a quick question for you as well when
Yes.
you've got an opportunity.
Yes, okay, let me fold this and then I'll be ready. So fold it once. Crease it right on the hair, and this is a lock-in foil. This is going to support the foil so it doesn't slide. If you have foils that slide, so I'm going to fold this over, and with my pintail teeth, I'm just going to rock that up. So now I just locked that foil in so it will not slip, and that's that. Okay, I'm ready, Daniel.
Amazing technique. I can't say it enough. And one question about when working with your lightener and doing this technique, is there a certain kind of consistency that you prefer to work with for your lightener?
You know, I like my lighteners thick. I really do like my lighteners thick. And, you know, it's interesting, all bleaches, you know, we get the lift from the powder, not the developer, because we have two active ingredients, sodium metasilicate, potassium persulfate. These two ingredients, what they do is the sodium metasilicate opens up the cuticle. The potassium persulfate is what goes in and takes care of the melanin so that it's lighter. So what happens is the more powder you put in because you like it thicker, the more lift you're going to get, because it makes it stronger. It makes your product stronger because you're mixing more of the ingredients that give you the lift than the developer. I never, when I do clients, I never do anything more than 20 volume. And I'll tell you why. If I want it, because I like my powder lightener thicker, I will add more powder to it. So instead of 1 to 2, I'll mix 1 to 1.5. And what happens is I get this amazing lift because it is more of the sodium metasilicate and the potassium persulfate's giving me that lift. Your developer, when you're working with bleach, is really your working time. It's how long do you want that product to work? So for example, if I knew that her hair was a bit compromised, I could do this technique with 5 volume. And what would happen is it'll stop working sooner than what 20 volume would do. So I like 1 to 1.5, I do. But you know, you've got to be able to work it so that you can get that saturated. Okay, so this is our third foil. Fold it up at where the hair is, crease it, lock it in, and then we're done with that. Oh, I creased it crooked right there. All right, so we've got 3 back-to-backs. And this hair I'm going to leave forward because we're going to do something to it. I'm going to address that hairline. I hope that answered that question.
Flawlessly and beyond expectation that answered that question. It was, yeah. I think it's amazing for any educator that's on here, and as well as the students as well, like in hearing that answer and understanding that that level of complexity to the actual chemistry of the product.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, it's a lot, to your point, I think it's a lot more than just the technique, but understanding that product you're working with is so important. So your answer was really above and beyond.
It really is. You know, the chemistry part, I used to mess up so much hair because I truly didn't understand the chemistry behind what it was doing. And then once I understood what it was doing, then I knew how to work with it instead of just taking someone's word for it. And trust me, you guys, you don't have to take my word for it. I want you to research it. I want you to find out what are the active ingredients in bleach. Okay, so now I'm going to do her hairline hair. So this is what's going to happen. I need her, if you want to get a foil in super close, the last thing you want to do is put it, I'm going to move these out of the way, is have her head straight up. And I'll show you why. Because if you do that, there's times where you'll have this area is darker because we're standing here. Look at my body. If you can pull out so that they can see my body. Look at how I'm leaning. And she's probably on her phone or on a magazine. And I'm putting this foil in. And I'm like this. Now look at the foil, the angle of the foil. Because my body, can you get in that tight, Em? Yep, right there, beautiful. My body won't let me get that foil in there. So this is what I'm going to tell you. The more horizontal you can get your guest, the flatter the foil is going to be. So this is what I tell my client. Okay, so I need you to put, so since I'm working on her left side, I need you to put your right ear to your right shoulder. Oh, for the love of Pete, hang on. I don't know what's going on here. I got like 18 clips and none of them are holding them. Okay, so I'm gonna ask her to put her ear to her right shoulder, chin down, and then look up at me. So it's like this. She's only gonna be there for 5 minutes, maybe max. So here we go. I had her put her head over. Now look at how flat she is to me. She's almost horizontal. I don't wanna be unrealistic and put her completely sideways. So let's do this. I'm gonna zigzag. Now look at how flat she is to me. I'm gonna drop this down too. You know, we raise and drop our chairs for hair cutting, but we really don't think about this when we're coloring. It's just like hair cutting. I think that's too chunky. Let me do it again. It's just like hair cutting. We got to look at what our body's doing. We got to look at what her head's doing. Okay, so I'm pulling this directly out from where it grows. I'll rough it up. Take my foil, 1 inch. And if you guys have any questions, just ask, please, because, you know, someone might want to ask the same question or didn't even think about it, and you're going to help them learn. So I've got my product on.
And as you're applying, we've got another question for you actually about your foil. Does it really matter which type of foil you're using? Because it looks like you are using one that's a little bit thicker than maybe some of the other traditional like box foils that sometimes can be a bit finer. Do you have a preference or a recommendation that you prefer to work with?
I prefer a thicker foil, and I don't normally use this in the salon, and I'll tell you why I'm using this one. This one is Fermar. I really like the Fermar ones for when I do video work or photo work because they don't give reflection to the camera. So this is one of my favorite foils to use. It's a heavier foil. It looks neater when you fold it. That's another trick. why I use it. I will tell you, I have a foil cutting machine, and this foil cutting machine is amazing. It's called 24/7. And what this machine does, you can cut it different lengths. I just go set the set thing, hit a button, and it'll cut me 100 foils, and come back, grab them, and then go to work. Or some of them I'll already have them pre-cut and keep them in a little Tupperware can. And they're thicker, they're heavier, they're shiny, they're super shiny. So that wouldn't be great for the camera. It would be too distracting to see what's happening on the hair. But it's called 24/7, and I'll tell you, it was we did the math on how much time it saved for having interns and stylists cutting the foils. This thing will cut it for you, and it'll even put a small lip on it if you want to have a small lip on it. So I do prefer a thicker foil. Okay, so we have our last one, and we got that. And I do want to do one right above her ear, just so when she pulls her hair back. Oh.
And then hopefully I can ask you another question as you're
Sure.
separating that out. The first one, I've got two of them here for you. The first one is when you're using that kind of on the scalp little zigzag, is your tail making contact with the scalp at all?
Yes,
okay.
It is. And some of my clients start to fall asleep. They like how it feels.
Almost like little massage type of things, huh?
Yeah. They're like, oh, that feels good. So it is contacting the skin. It is like a little zigzag. And the faster you move, this was the tip that I did want to touch on, and I want to make sure I do that. The faster you move, the less hair you'll get. The slower you move, the more hair you'll get. Now, team, this is important. This is going to be my last foil. So I want you to make sure that when you're addressing this root, you're pulling that foil directly out from the hair. Just think about when you're doing hair cutting and you want to do a 90. It's the same thing. Okay, so then we're going to put that, fold it in half. And then what was the second?
The second one was if that one's going to be kind of one of your last along the hairline, could you just reinforce the partings that you used from the top through the front hairline and then over that ear? On the top, were they horizontal or diagonal? I mean, I believe, and by all means, correct me if I'm wrong. They all kind of just follow the hairline, correct?
Yep, mirror the hairline. You've got 1, 2, 3, and then here I did 1, 2. The thing is, when you take this, see if somebody has that crazy hairline like that. If you take a really fine parting and zigzag that, you will not see any shadow happening. It's so cool how it works. But I'll do this, and then just one here. You can definitely go through the whole hairline. If you were going to go through the back and add some, because she likes to put her hair up, instead of doing this one first, because see how long and curved it is, what you would do is do at least 2 here, and what that'll do is it'll take this much hair out. So now it just shortened that side foil. So now you can put 1 foil here versus putting a long one here, getting a gap of color. If you take 2 foils here, you just took that hair and took care of it, and then you just do that. So that's how we did. I hope that answered that question.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so we've got our foils in the front. Now, the next step is going to be and let me clean this out so you guys can see what we're going. We are going to do our side. So we have this side, and it looks like a little square. We've just put a couple of foils. Now what I'm going to do from the top recession to the back of the ear, I'm going to split that diagonally in half. So here is her front hair is right, her face is right here. Here's the back of her ear. I'm just going to take a slice, and we're going to pin this one away. So we're going to work on this. Now we're going to work around the hairline. This is what's really interesting. If you have ever done okay, wait, let me keep going. Okay, so I'm going to do a strong weave effect with my finger. It's very organic because you're putting it on something that you want to have really nice movement. So I'm going to take this hair, I'm reading the haircut. I have to see what this haircut is saying, because if it was cut like this, I need to stand back here and see where the hair goes horizontal versus at a diagonal. Can you see that, Daniel? Am I showing that properly? See at the angle? And if I move and I keep walking, now do you see how that looks like a horizontal line?
Yep.
This is what we're doing. I'm looking at the angle of the hair. If this is cut here, I'm going to color it here. If this was cut like that back here, I'm going to color it there. And this is the technique. So I'm going to read the haircut first. So number one, read the haircut. It has a slight angle here. I'm going to walk until it goes horizontal. That means I stood here and cut it so that when it fell, it did that. So you can see how my fingers are at a diagonal. I'm going to put color in diagonally, because the worst thing you can do is have a haircut that is blonding, that's like this, a haircut that's doing this, and you stand here and put a horizontal line on something that's falling this way, because we visually can see that there's no connection. So without that connection, we can see it. You've got something that looks like a dip dye on something that's doing this. Do you follow? Okay, so I'm going to stand here because the haircut's telling me my first foil, we're going to put two foils together. My first one I'm holding down. I'll rough up 1 inch right where I want the back combing to happen. Most of the time we start our back combing down here and we push up. What happens is we take all the hair out and there's not enough color, and then we have to take her outside and say with the mirror and say highlights. Well, what happened was we just pushed all that hair away. So this is the rule. When you're back combing, rule number one, stand where the haircut is telling you to stand. The second rule is place your pintail where you want the highlight to start. Very important. Then what you're going to do is rough it up, just probably 1 inch past where you're going to apply your color. So if I want my highlight here, I'm moving this 1 inch past. This is going to be my blending area, and let me show you. I'm going to use my foil as a ruler. I'm going to put 1 inch on my foil, and I'll slide my foil underneath. So I'm going to apply the lightener here down, and this I'm going to blend up, and I'll show you in a second what I mean. So I've got my lightener. My ruler is the fold in my foil. If I wanted it 1/4 of an inch, then I'd put 1/4 of an inch lip. So then I'm going to do this, roll this back and forth, make sure, remember we want to make sure we have great saturation. All right, now what I've got is a clear creamy color. This, the product that I'm using is the Veda Universal Zero In. It's really thick and creamy, and it's 5 volume. So what I'm going to do is I'm grabbing some of that some of the lightener, and I'm pulling it up in that 1 inch section. And the more you put on, the better. So if you think you have enough, grab some more. And then in that 1 inch section, what I'm doing is I'm diluting that lightener by doing this. This helps with any lines that you get in any of your color. You can do this with conditioner. If your product line has a clear base, you can do it with a clear base. Okay, so that's one. And you can see there's a shadow right there. Our next one, what I'm going to do is ask her to tilt her head over, because I want to pull this directly out from where it grows. This, the negative space when I did the weave, this is what I'm addressing now. So the first one has a shadow, you drag it down. The next one, you pull it straight out from where it grows, and you're taking the back combing directly to the root. Okay, and we're using the same movement that we did with our back combed microweaves. I'm going to take this, pull it away, drop this down, dismount my comb. I'm using the head shape, and I'm pulling this back combing up and out of the way. I'm counting on all of this to be my shadow when her hair falls down. So I'm going to take this, pull this straight out. So again, I'll address the mids and ends before I do the root area. Make sure it's really nice and saturated. And if you can see how much product I'm putting on, the more product you get, the better lift you'll achieve. And a lot of times we don't put enough product on. This is how bleach works. When it's wet, it's working. When it's dry, it's dead. So if you don't saturate it properly, you're going to have a product that stopped working halfway through the process, and you're expecting more lift. So if you think that your product isn't giving you enough lift, there's 2 reasons. The first is it's not saturated enough. Okay, here team, I'm pulling it directly out from where it grows again, because I don't want to have a heavy line. Rolling this back and forth. And I'm sandwiching these foils. So I've got one low, and you can see how I pulled it up and out. It actually has a bump that's coming. That's how you know it's at a 90. So I've got one low, and this is going to be my shadow, and one high. Remember in the mannequin, that's the one that came up higher. And then you can leave these if you don't want to fold them in the salon if I'm working really fast. If she's got super long hair, I won't fold these. I never crease on this part where I know there's hair, but I'll crease right where I know the hair is, where there isn't any hair. And then fold this. That's a foil in foil. So what we've done, again, and I'll show you with this, if we can get a front shot in so the team can see what we're doing. I've got one that's all the way up, one that's all the way up. You can see where the shadow is. That's the effect that we're creating. We're actually creating a shadowed root. And that's why this is a great technique for someone who has dark hair and wants to be blonde all over. Okay, here we go. Strong weave effect with my finger. I'm using my finger. I want it to be an organic feel. Drop this down. Daniel, can you still hear me?
Absolutely. Yep. I'm going to,
okay.
Once you finish that, I do have a couple questions for you, but I'm going to let you get those foils in because a lot of them were about, can we see that one more time? So.
Oh, you're going to see it a few times. Here we go. I'm going to just keep going. Here we go. So I've got my 1-inch lip on that foil. And this one is the one that I'm leaving a shadow. So this one's further down. Roll it back and forth. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to grab my universal. I'm putting it on the hair and I'm grabbing some of that lightener and rolling it back and forth. And team, the trick to this, so that this is that seamless, and I'll bring the pre-done mannequin up in a minute and show you how seamless. This gives you that seamless finish. So sandwich your foil.
While doing, can you reinforce exactly what that product is doing to help kind of create that dilution? People have asked a few questions to hear it one more time, so if you could just give that explanation, that'd be great.
Yeah, the universal zero in, what that does, you can do it with conditioner. So when we put the enlightener on, it's in its full force stage. So anything, I keep not tightening her enough. So anything that can dilute the power of the enlightener is what you want to use. Conditioner will do it. Okay, I'm going to drop this down. What will happen with conditioner is, especially if it has a pH balance to it, it will stop the process versus diluting it. So you might have less of a lift in through here. This universal zero in it has no ammonia. It's clear. I mix it with 5 volume. And what the reason why I like to use universal with 5 volume is, it'll still keep that enlightener, the bleach, the lightener, it'll keep it working slightly. So I get a softer dismount of color. So now I'm going to pick you could use your conditioner, apply it to that 1-inch line, that lip that I've created, and then I'm going back and forth. And what I'm doing is I'm just blurring that line out. And you notice I'm not going down here because I want all that to lift. The only thing I want to blur out is right where I put my pintail comb in and right where that line of the foil is. That's the line of the foil. So I just really want to concentrate on that and go back and forth. Because before, there was a time I did this technique and I didn't make sure I had enough product in it. So the top part got blurred out, but the underneath didn't. So you really want to roll that hair back and forth. Okay,
those are lovely. Thank you for sharing that one.
Yeah, it's such a fun technique to blur it. So what's happening is we're blurring the heck out of this effect, because pulling it out at a 90 blurs it. Using the, okay, so now, let me show you. Okay, so we just finished this. I split that in half. We had foil in, foil in. Now I'm going diagonally towards her nose, and we're going to do 3 foil in there. Same technique, but I will talk to you about it. So her face, I'm standing in front of her. She's facing me. I've got 1, 2, 3. These are going to be 3 foil ins. So our first one, this is very important. So if you look at someone who has if we can get a straight shot in, if we look at someone who has this type of a technique, it goes higher, the shadow's higher, and it starts to work down through here. You can see the shadow starting to get lower and darker at the crown. So this is how it happens. I'm going to stand here. I'll do my foil in. pull this out. We're going to foil that. This is my first one. I'm pulling it forward. Now you can see where I just put my foil for the microwave. I'm pulling this forward, and it's not, there's no elevation. If you get elevation, you're going to get closer. I don't want elevation. Halfway that hair shaft, I'm going to rough it up, push 1 inch. And this is where, this is my guideline. So all of those ends, the lows are going to come to this point. So what happens is, just like if I were, think about when you're cutting. If I stood here and I cut this and then I combed it straight down, it would go shorter to longer. That's what we're doing. We're dragging the root forward. So when it falls, you'll have a longer root in the back. It gives it that really pretty natural effect.
Lupe,
Now,
another question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Oop, I'm sorry. Just one quick question for you. With the tension, someone just asked, when you are kind of pulling that hair out, are you maintaining a pretty consistent tension on that hair, or are you keeping it a little bit softer?
I'm gonna check. Let me check. That I never really thought about the tension. Let me see.
I think the question came in at a time that you were placing a foil. So when you place that foil in there, are you using pretty good tension while pulling down on the hair and pushing up with the foil?
Yeah, I am. This part, yes. So here we go. I think this is the part, is this when it happened? So back comb that down, get a nice cushion. Get that 1 inch lip. Pull this away. Yes, this, there's a lot of tension here. A lot of tension. And then move this up and out. Yeah. And then these flat star clips are the best. You can get these on hair braid right here. Okay, that'll hold that back. Let's paint this on 1 inch from the root. Make sure that we get all of this work. Now, see how tall she is? I'm having to lift my shoulder up. I want to make sure I drop that down. You have to watch your body, peeps, because if you guys are going to be doing this for a while, you have to take care of your body. Okay, so roll this back and forth.
And we've got one more question that came through for you, Lupe. Is you mentioned 2 reasons that lightener can stop working. If you could just repeat those and reinforce those for the viewers.
So if it's wet, it's working. If it's dry, it's dead. That's one. And lightener, any type of bleach, has to be wet in order to work. And I don't know if anybody's ever got bleach on their clothes and they've like done this and then they wash it and then all of a sudden it comes out of the wash with a spot, and when you put it in, it didn't have a spot. You actually reactivate the product. So even on the scalp bleach application around the hairline, if it looks like it's drying out, if you just want to mist it with some water, it'll work. Even with our at the shampoo bowl for a tonal cleanse, we say just use hot water and then lightener. That's the proof that you get the lift in the powder, not the developer. The developers are working time. So if it's wet, it's working. If it's dry, it's dead. So you want to make sure that you saturate this a lot. Another time when you want this product to stop working, you can dilute it with something else. And that's, this one, I'm so sorry, I'm talking, this one's a low. Let's do this because this is important. Okay, team, this is the one that has the shadow. So remember, I'm pulling it back where I was before, halfway. So now what's going to happen is the low one at the beginning is a little bit closer. This one's getting further away from the root. And let's see. Oh, so when you're in thinking about removal of any type of lightener, you need to shampoo the hair 3 times because it's a resin. I'm not talking about like a massage shampoo. I'm talking about doing more of, shampoo it, and then get it out. And that way it doesn't affect how your toners take, and you'll have longevity in your glossing. Okay, back and forth. Back and forth. You can see how I'm really working the product. And if you think you have enough, you put more on. This part is really thick. This is this is the way that you get that seamless back combing. Okay, now I'm going to ask her to put her chin down because I want this to be held directly out from where it grows. So it's important that you have her chin down. all the way down, rock it back and forth. And the thing is, when you're at the scalp, if you rock your pintail comb, the teeth back and forth, that really gets tight. Okay, so again, the same movement that we did in our micro weaves, we're pulling this away, drop it down to the ground, up and over, up and over. If you need a clip, put it on, apply, get your saturation. Did I answer that thoroughly, the working with lighteners and how they work? It's really interesting that if you see how, this is the gauges that I have. If it's an even opacity, then I know that this is gonna have an even lift. But if you see how chunky this hair is, and look at, I have to really work that product in. I use a lot of product, but I get really pretty even lift from doing these techniques. Okay, so at the root, I'm gonna pull this foil out from where it grows at a 90. All right, I can tell it's a good lift because it's got a buckle in the foil. Okay, fold it up, pinch outside the hair, and then foil forward. Yeah, that. And in the salon, if you're working fast, you do not have to fold these up. Okay, so that we've got this. Let's clip this back. So this is the last one on the front. I'm gonna stand, this is my low, so I'm gonna stand exactly where I was and then put her chin up, because remember I just put her chin down. I wanna keep that low at the same point so that we have more drag. Now look at, that's hardly anything compared to what we were doing before, and that just got longer. If we connect a lot of what we do with the same concepts with cutting, you know, over direction, elevation, it does give you the same end results, and especially where we stand and where their head is, where our guests' heads are when we're working. Okay, so pull this up.
Absolutely. I think, I mean, the way that I'm thinking about this for anyone here is also, a strong hair cutter, that really the point that you're bringing to is almost like a stationary guide in a haircut. You're always referencing that one point. So I think that's some great comparisons you're making.
Yeah, this is my stationary guide. So now I'm going to go to her, I want it to get close. So I'm going to ask her to put her chin down. And now I'm going to put this at the root. Yeah, that I never really thought about calling it a stationary guide. Yeah, that was my stationary guide. So I'm intermixing a stationary guide with a 90 with a traveling guide. Oh, that might be a really cute haircut. You gotta try that one out.
That
okay, so pull
could
this
be
away.
quite fun.
Yeah, you'll have some really cool long tendrils in there. Okay, so we've got this. Make sure that we apply to.
And another question came in, actually, speaking about the haircut, you mentioned earlier about referencing the line that the hair was cut at to help you kind of determine the angle. If let's say you may be in a situation where you're going to be cutting the hair after you do the color, would the idea be to kind of visualize what that haircut would be? Or would you actually recommend that maybe that cut be done first, so that way you can base it off of those lines?
Well, if you're cutting it, then so just follow it, just do it like you were going to cut it. And Gerard and I, we had this class at the academy in New York, and it was color the cut and cut the color. We would have the same subsections, and I would tell Gerard, I'm going to color it this way, and he would ask, what's the what effect are you asking? We would talk to each other. He would talk to me in colorist terms, and I would talk to him in the cutter terms. And we would have the same subsectioning as the cut. So then we would color I would color it, put it back in its subsections, hand it to him, and he would cut it. And it was the same the other way around. He would cut it, hand it to me in the subsection, and then I would color it. So it was really cool to understand that if you're going to do this and your subsections in your haircut, color it the same way, put in the subsections that you're going to cut it, and do the same angles that you want in the color.
I think that reinforces, because that's actually just a question that comes through is, right now you've been using a lot of diagonals to go through. Do those partings always have to be diagonals, or do you ever reposition them to be horizontals, or is it just the direction in which you pull the hair that changes?
It's the direction, but I still am working in diagonals, and I'll tell you why. Whenever you're doing any type of blonding that you want to be seamless, a diagonal will fall seamless. Horizontal, you're looking at getting a heavy line if you're not careful. So hold this down, and I'm doing the same thing. I split this in two, so you can see how fast this technique goes. Yeah, so I normally, whenever I do blonding, I love to work in diagonals. The only time that I find that I don't work in diagonals is if I'm doing a block color. And then sometimes I'll work in diagonals as well. But I think earlier we said, we were talking about it being seamless. Working in diagonals is part of the way of creating that seamless finish, because you're taking it away, you're over directing it, and that causes graduation. And that's what it happens to our eyes with hair color. It causes that seamless graduation in color as well. So I'm safer working in diagonals and working away from where it grows. I always pull it away from where it grows, versus the only time that I'll do it from color where it grows is when I'm doing a foil that's at the root. Okay, yeah, these are some great questions. You're making me think. Okay, so now I'm at the root, push it down. And you can see how thick this is. These aren't little tiny pieces. This is thick. This placement, no hair left behind. No hair left behind. And I want to show you, because even when we work through that triangle in the back, we still have one more step, and that's to grab all the front hairline and pull it forward. All that little negative space, that microweave that we did, we're going to pull that forward. How are we doing on our timing? We got 10. Okay, I'll put this on. This way.
And Lupe, can you explain a little bit about your choice in sectioning in the back? Are they about the same size as what you were doing in the front, or is it a little bit larger now with even more hair?
It's larger because of space. So now we're back here, and I just took and split this diagonally in half that way. So they're much bigger. But if you look at the effect, what I want more shadow through the back. You can see in through here how there's more shadow through the back. Can you see how it's deeper, darker?
Yeah.
And that way the front is our lightest, and as it goes to the back, it gets.
I know, and for me, I think that really, looking at that technique, it really seems to reinforce almost what happens naturally. There's always usually a little bit more shadow that happens back in that nape or back of the head, because light just traditionally doesn't hit there, right?
Yeah, and it was really interesting. It doesn't, because even at the beach, I was looking at people walking around and they had their hair pulled up in a ponytail. Everything that, and my nieces, they would drop their hair down. I'm like, let me comb through your hair. This is beautiful. And all of this in the back, the lightness was just on the tips, and all the shadow was on the inside of their hair. So look at how wide that is. That's a big chunky section right there. And this is what's really cool about this. Hold this one down, one's up. The first one's down, halfway through the hair shaft, push it up 1 inch past where you want the highlight to start. That's my guide. That's my 1 inch. Yeah, and I would sit there and look at their hair, and it was just beautiful. And I'm like, how can we emulate that? And that's how I figured if I did one low, one high, I would create that shadowed root. I wouldn't have to go back, because we spend a lot of time putting foils in. And then we go back and then have to shadow root the root area. Well, you've created it, so you don't need to. Okay, pull this up, roll it back and forth. So I don't foil with anything more than 20 volume. You don't really need to. What happens is, going back to that chemistry piece, and I completely forgot to mention it. And the reason why I don't foil because I said I don't foil with more than 20, but I never said why. 30 volume, so has a lot of activity. So does 40 volume. You don't get lift from the developer, so you really don't need that. It's really interesting. If you guys did an experiment, and I don't have my swatches with me, and I wish right now I did. If you put 10, 20, 30, 40 volume on a piece of hair, 4 different swatches of virgin hair, in 20 minutes, wash them off. And what you'll see is they all look the same in the first 20 minutes. you get the most lift in the first 20 minutes with product. So what I would do in the salon, I would only mix a half a batch at a time. So for example, if I knew I was going to do 6 bowls of color with all this hair, I would have 6 bowls prepped, but I wouldn't actually stir them. And the thing about stirring up lightener, you have to make sure all the sodium metasilicate and all the potassium persulfates are mixed so that you get the lift. Most of the time, average mixing time is 15 seconds when we mix our bleaches. So what we have to do is we have to mix at least for 45 seconds. If you guys are having issues with your bleaches not lifting, your lightener's not lifting, one reason is because it's not mixed properly. Second reason is because it's not saturated properly. Okay, so we got about 5 minutes left. I do want to show you the front. So in that triangle, what I would do is split that in half and do the same technique, team. Do the same technique as what we did right here. So here, in this triangle, I would take and split this directly in half, one foil in here and a foil in there. But I do want to, so she has all of this going on. So for guest comfort, as I was working, you know, I didn't pull her back because I wanted to make sure that you guys could see what we're doing. I would pull all of these back, use a flat clip to make sure that you don't, I'll show you the difference between the two. You want to clip it on a flat clip. You don't want to use a bevel clip because you'll see this. Can you get that in? You can see that divot that just happened. What happens is if you use a flat clip, these star clips are amazing. You won't get a divot in there. So if you want to hold clips or foils out of the way, you use a flat clip. Okay, so let's move these foils out, and I'm going to pull her hair here, here, here. And this is what I'm doing, team. I am going to grab all of this hair on this side, pull it forward. Think about if I were cutting it, and it's like a stationary guide. Everything is pulled forward. I'm going to rough that up right where the foils are stopping me. That's where I stop. We're going to put this in a foil as well. No hair left behind. This is how we get that really pretty blonded tips all over her head. Okay, and then grab our universal, roll it back and forth. Make sure it's seamless. Here, I'm going to lock this one in. And team, when you lock your foils, you really only want to lock one side so that you can get them out. Because one time I locked both sides and it was pretty painful. She was not happy with me. Okay, and then we'll pull this back. Get a flat star clip and clip this back. And then I'll mirror the other side. Pull it forward, back home, and that's it.
It's been phenomenal. Somebody even posted in the chat, I think they may have given you a new tagline. They said, Voss is the boss. So I don't know.
Voss is the boss. All right. So then you pull this up, roll it back and forth. You guys, if you have anybody that you've been wanting to blonde and you were wanting to do this in a fast way, because a lot of times people bring in a balayage picture and balayage won't get this blonde. It won't do it. So we've got our clip. And then here. So this is our lovely girl, and let's look at her curls again. This is her done in a curly pattern, so you can see all the lightness that you can see the shadow through here. And then again, let's look at her hairline. Can you get down tight right here? This is her micro weaves that are back combed, and you can see how they're more random and they're more natural. And then we have our ends that have all of that shadow. Look at how that color is. And that's from backcombing diagonally, blending up. You can't even see any lines that have happened in her hair. And I would suggest when you shampoo this out, you can see how, and now it's darker through the back. What I would suggest is just to make sure that you put conditioner on her And then you start combing through, starting at her ends and then working it all the way through. So I want to thank you guys so much for joining our blonding day today. You've got some fun tips and tricks, and I hope to see you soon.
I think this session
you can find me, Instagram, Lupe Voss, regular Lupe Voss.
It was phenomenal. I actually had just put your Instagram handle in the chat. So anybody that's there, feel free to swing by Instagram and follow Lupe. So that way you can keep up with everything that she posts and she does online. And there's one last question we'll pitch to you for this session is one participant said they've heard a few people say that clay lightener is better for things that for balayage. Do you have an opinion on that? Would you say that's true or not?
So clay lightener is for the balayage technique. Yes. That's freehand painting and balayage. It will stop working when it gets dried out. The one thing, this technique here, because it is not a balayage bleach, it's isolated in a foil, so you're going to get more lift longer. So if you have a darker starting level, because we can agree this looks like a balayage, it's a balayage finish, but the technique is tipping. And this is something that we've got to make sure that our guests understand, because they'll say, I want a balayage, but that doesn't mean it's the technique we do. You can give them a balayage finish, but using a different technique, because some balayage in hair painting is a very natural technique. Balayage, you can get big chunky pieces that's in right now, where you're pulling the product through. Balayage and hair painting are different. Hair painting is surface painting. So for example, if I did all of this foil and I wanted something that's really pretty to break up the dark and the light so it's not so much contrast in between the foils, I'd hair paint. That's surface painting. So you're doing a really pretty surface paint. But the clay bleach is definitely for hair painting, and it doesn't give you as much lift as what you would get in a foil. So darker starting levels, do this technique. Hair painting on lighter levels, totally do it.
Awesome. Great. Thank you for that answer. And again, Lupe, thank you so much for today's session. It's been phenomenal, as always, with the past ones. So much depth and information and knowledge that comes from you. So again, thank you very much to you. And
thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Everyone else, thank you again for viewing. Make sure that you do head over to Instagram and follow Lupe's page. That way you get, and again, from Pivot Point, thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you guys next week on one of our last currently scheduled Hairbrain sessions. But on that note, again, thank you, everyone. Take care, and we'll see you next time.